Alright everyone, now it's time for strategically unhelpful bullshit with the national divorce debate having coal shoveled on the smothered embers at this point by Marjorie Taylor Greene actually the other day invoking that very concept. Now, a national divorce in the soft sense that is typically proposed by its actual proponents is not a full-on secession movement. It's not a civil war. It's the concept that there are effectively two Americas. There's a red state America and a blue state America, and they should partition. They should balkanize from one another in a confederacy sort of way, and an amiable way in which, there's no shots fired or anything. They secede from one another, and they gain greater self-representation. There are a plethora of issues with this. First, you're ignoring blue areas in red states and red areas in blue states. For example, state of Illinois. Chicago is heavily blue. It's overrun by liberal Democrats, and the leftoids now too. Most of the state is not. It's fairly rural or small town. It's red. Look at the state of Ohio. Ohio is a very red, and Illinois is a blue state because of the population of Chicago. New York's the same thing. Ohio is a red state. A lot of red areas. But if you go to their capital, or if you go to Toledo, you will find more people that are Democrats. And we're being reductionist with this. Before we go into the deeper details of what a national divorce, amiable or non-amiable, would actually pertain to, we're just looking at the partisan component. We're looking at people, some Democrat living in Florida probably doesn't feel so happy right now. Republican living in California probably doesn't feel so happy right now, and so they feel that they want to split. If you are going to draw up those lines, doing it on a state-to-state basis would just cause a mass exodus of people and absolute chaos. Over 100 million people would be in areas that they don't really fit in with, and would lurch heavily off into right-wing tradcon authoritarianism. Unfortunately, other than New Hampshire, you wouldn't get a libertarianism movement out of this. I'll address their statement on the topic later. You wouldn't get that. You'd get tradcon authoritarian states, and then you'd get far leftoid states that would make Venezuela look tame by comparison. You would get a huge split between urban and rural that, by the way, would destroy both. Rural areas are more productive in the sense of natural resources, fuel and energy, farming, certainly, food, forestry for lumber, etc. All of those toys that they have in the cities, whether they're consuming them domestically or exporting, importing, they come from rural areas primarily, unless it's something that's been machined, something that's been processed in a factory. A lot of those processing factories are also in flyover country because Blue says, you think that the people in New York City want the carbide plant in New York City? No. Number one, there's no room, no fucking place to put it. Number two, they'd worry about the environmental impact. They want the bumpkins out in Kansas to be the ones to have to deal with that in case the factory springs a leak or something like that. The Alcoa factory, powdered aluminum processing. Likewise, those productive areas that mine the natural resources, that farm the natural resources, the forestry, all of those other things that supply to the cities, they are reliant upon those cities for portage. Disproportionately, the coasts are blue. If you had a situation where you had even an amiable national divorce, even if you could draw it up along county lines, so you've dissolved the states and then reformed them in some capacity, because 10th Amendment, unless you're going to scrap the Constitution, in which case no reasonable person would go along with your plan for a balkanization, effectively. Let's say you do it county by county. So you redo the county system in the United States, so far fewer people are sort of divorced from friendly lines. So you've carved it up in a way that most people are fine with it. So Democrats are in blue areas, Republicans are in red areas. That's, again, reductionist, but you've managed to accomplish that. Then you have the logistics of trade, because trade and travel will still need to be accounted for. The red states might say, well, it'll just be a freebie, we'll just keep doing things the same way and remove any tariffs and fines and fees and stuff and call it a day. Do you think that the cities will be happy about that? No. The cities do, in some cases, require huge subsidies from surrounding areas. I love it. By the way, I will point this one thing out. One of the biggest lines that liberals say about why national divorce wouldn't work, we would win, which you wouldn't, but I'll get into why, is that disproportionate federal funding goes to the bumpkin states. What about state funding? You do realize state taxes and subsidies are a thing. Do you know who pays for New York City? The people of New York State. Those productive areas. The business, the mines, the forestry plots, the farmers and stuff pump huge amounts of money into there, and they pump huge amounts of money into Albany. It's this sort of disparate corruption that half of these people have a problem with in the first place. Now, there's a more reason, by the way, we'll get into a deeper reason why a national divorce situation wouldn't work. You'd end up the Byzantine Empire, with both sides less powerful than before and less coordinated. Yes, you would end U.S. imperialism. I'm proud to say that a national divorce would at least reduce the capability of the United States to go into third world nations and fuck around. See, there's only one problem. There are other powers in the world that would just pick up the slack for you. So the United States wouldn't guarantee the trade lanes. The British would guarantee some of them. Maybe the Chinese would. I'm sure that yes, the new United States, we're much more star-spangled now than we were before. Yeah, we're China's bitch, but yeah, things have definitely improved now that all of those Democrats are in their city-states. No, I don't think that it would. I think that it would scramble world trade and lead to a worldwide famine and probably subsequently World War III. Now, if you want to go full Fallout or full Stalker or something, yeah, okay. National divorce probably sounds pretty good. You know, you've got yours. You get stacks of MREs and stuff because you're prepared. I like MREs. I like militaria, and guns are fun, and so on forth. I don't think it would work out for you, though. Life is not a video game in the end. Also, the logistics of creating a national divorce just aren't there. Some people have pointed out, well, during the revolution, only a small proportion of people ever took up arms. That's true. A much smaller proportion of people today would be willing to do so in such a situation because they're too busy talking about it on the internet. And really, they're not under nearly as much stress. They're not living on some unelectrified farm 300 years ago or something where they have to fend off attack by Native Americans or something. That's not their reality. They have electricity and heating and a fridge and the internet to shitpost on. And so the same ideas that are amplified are almost de-amplified. By the way, I don't think that discussing national divorce is a bad thing. I see it as a good thing for the same reason I've pointed out for years. It is catharsis. When people are talking, they're not shooting. A person running their mouth on the internet is not actually a threat. I've been threatened. I've had my life threatened thousands of times on the internet. Not one person has ever attacked me in any way. That's because they're free to simply bitch about me. They're free to complain about me. I don't have a problem with it. I don't see the problem. I don't feel that it's a threat whatsoever. They're achieving psychological catharsis. This is why we need a free and open internet. Here's a better solution than national divorce. We go back to a proper understanding of the Constitution, and we reform our civic structures. Now, much like when I tell white nationalists the easiest way to take care of the demographic problem that they think exists is to have more white babies, they will immediately resort to, no, Sticks, we can't do that. It's inconceivable that we could possibly participate more in civics, that we could learn more skills, improve ourselves, and starve the machine, drain the government of its authoritarianism by simply not needing as much government. It's impossible for us to form local schooling syndicates. Everyone goes to public school. It's impossible to do otherwise. But it's possible to achieve balkanization through what methodology? If you're not talking about a civil war, you're talking about the peaceful dissolution of the Union. That's what's being alluded to by people in the soft sense. By what method? What constitutional method exists? Again, unless you intend to scrap that particular document in the formation of your new 2 or however many countries that you're creating. Well, you would rip the fabric of the U.S. apart. There's no reason to balkanize. If you're so worried about the United States surviving, just let it collapse then. Don't bother balkanizing. Because if you do that, it will collapse. Any vestige of what used to be Americanism would be effectively dead. There would be no attempt at civic unity whatsoever. There'd be no constitutional concept. Things would get worse for literally everybody. And so I'd like to see that particular topic shelved by people who have no legitimate bitch about the United States, including people like Marjorie Taylor Greene who have 6-figure salaries. If you do have a legitimate grievance, you're down and out, you are being abused by the government, exempt yourself from that abuse. You can actually do that. It requires hard work, but there is no external force that's going to save you. There is no great leader that's going to come along on a shining cloud and reform the Constitution and it will be Hail Columbia all over again. It's just not going to happen. That's about all. Peace out.